Hi everyone, welcome to this IPRS Health webinar on knee osteoarthritis, and today we're going to look at physical activity in your knee. So what are we going to cover? Why I'm calling it physical activity and not exercise is the first thing we're going to cover. Why is physical activity good? Is there a best form of physical activity? What physical activity is good at doing? How much physical activity should I do? And where should I start? They're the key questions that we're going to cover over the next 15-20 minutes, and we're going to try and delve into all of the detail around these and what the current evidence suggests is the best practice for all of these things. So why am I calling it physical activity and not exercise? The first reason is physical activity can take multiple forms, and sometimes exercise can be a bit alienating. People don't always want to partake in exercise, but physical activity is something that can be done anywhere and can be anything. It's anything that gets you moving a little bit more than it would before. So exercise, we traditionally think of organized sports, running, jogging, all of those things are exercise, which are great, which we should be encouraging. But physical activity can also be seen as things that we can integrate into our life a little bit easier. So taking the stairs instead of taking the lift, parking a little bit further away at work, playing with the grandkids, playing with your children, going out for a walk in the woods. All of these things are physical activities. And that comes down to it being doable and enjoyable. Physical activities, as we've just mentioned, can be and should be enjoyable to do. And that's a message that we will reiterate all the way through this presentation. So what is physical activity good at doing? It's good at reducing pain. We know from lots and lots and lots of research that physical activity and exercise can help reduce pain for knee osteoarthritis. It improves strength. The saying goes, you can't go wrong with getting strong. And that seems to be the case with physical activity in the knee. It also can help reduce the risk of other diseases. So when we think of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, some of those other things, physical activity is really good at not just helping with knee pain, but also reducing the risk of those other diseases. And more research coming out suggesting that physical activity can and does improve your mental health. So is there a best form? This is something I get asked in the clinic regularly. Is there a best form of physical activity to do? Is there a golden bullet? Is there something that the research has demonstrated to be this magic exercise that helps me get better? It turns out there's two things that we should be doing when we're thinking about physical activity in knee osteoarthritis. So there's strong evidence for these two things that can help you reduce pain and increase your physical capabilities: cardiovascular exercises and lower limb strengthening. And these are really broad. So cardiovascular exercises, simply put, are things that make you get out of breath, things that get your heart rate up. Might be jogging on the spot, walking up the stairs quickly, wrestling with the grandkids. Could be anything that gets your heart rate up a little bit, gets you a little bit out of breath. Lower limb strengthening is anything that tends to make your legs ache a little bit, that muscle ache that you feel when you've done squats or you've been running or you've been swimming, cycling, anything that gets those legs aching a little bit, which is different from the pain you experience, but anything that gets those legs aching can be seen to be lower limb strength training. So with those two things in mind, what physical activity is good for you to do? And these are going to take you through a little bit of a continuum as well. So we'll start at the bottom end, and these can be done if you're particularly flared up or in a little bit of pain at the moment. So gym and specific strengthening for your knee. Now this is a good place to start. Obviously it depends on access, but a lot of exercises in this kind of arena can be done at home as well. So it's a really nice place to start with some specific knee strengthening exercises. Swimming. So this, unlike the first one, can combine both cardiovascular exercise and knee strengthening. So when we think about swimming, it can be hard on the legs, your legs do ache, but it also gets you out of breath as well. So swimming, and again, particularly if you're flared up, can be a really nice place to start because you're not weight bearing through that knee as much. So it can be a really nice place to start for physical activity if your knee is particularly sore. Cycling, again, is a great combination of both cardiovascular and lower limb strengthening exercises. It'll make your legs ache. It'll get you out of breath. Really nice place to start. It's a bit of a progression on from swimming because we're loading that knee a little bit more. Walking, again, this is where we are starting to load a little bit. Probably not as cardiovascularly demanding, so it's not going to get you out of breath as much as the other two maybe, but it's certainly going to improve strength a little bit more because we're directly load bearing through that knee. And again, running, that's going to load bear a little bit more, build some nice strength around those quads, and improve that cardiovascular fitness. So when we think about running, and previously, we've thought, oh, running wears out my knees, it's not very good, the old wear and tear argument. Really good study from last year, and a few studies with lots and lots of people in it showed that running is actually protective against knee osteoarthritis. So running in self is not inherently dangerous. It's certainly something we shouldn't be scared of. If it's a goal we have to do and it's something you enjoy doing, it's not off the table for you if you have knee osteoarthritis. It's something you can build towards if you want to get to that point. And the last one on the list is kind of the end of the continuum, is competitive sports. So whether that's football, rugby, netball, hockey, rowing, badminton, squash, any of those things, it's something that you can build up to doing, and is also something that's really good for your knee because it's nice and competitive. It's probably distracting, and also it's enjoyable. So there's a nice continuum there of different exercises that you can look to do. If you're particularly flared up and sore, then maybe start down towards the gym and strength exercises and build up towards the competitive sports. Equally, if the physical activity you enjoy is not on that list, that's absolutely fine. If you don't enjoy doing any of those things, if you don't have access to any of those things, and doing exercises that are much simpler, such as bodyweight exercises at home, or walking, or anything that's easily accessible, you can do those things. The main thing that I want to get across around physical activity is that it should be something you can stick to. And if you're going to stick to it, it probably means it's going to be enjoyable. And that is a fundamental need for improving your overall health. But from the research, there's no one magic bullet. There's lots of different options you have when starting to think about physical activity. And it's something you should discuss with your physiotherapist as soon as you can, is what do you enjoy? What goals can you put in place? What can you plan for moving forward? How much should you do is also another question that I get asked very often, and I like to put in a very simple rule for people. There isn't a magic kind of algorithm for how much physical activity you should do. Everyone is an individual and should be treated as such. So when we're taking an individual approach, the way I like to start off is with the 24-hour rule. So if we're starting some form of physical activity, wait 24 hours till the next day. And if we wake up and it's more sore, a little bit worse, we've probably pushed it a little bit too far. But equally, if we've woken up and it's no worse, or it's a little bit better even, which is what we'd hope for, then you're in the right wheelhouse. You're doing the right thing, and you're loading it probably just as much as you need to. It's important to understand how much you're doing. So make sure whatever form of physical activity you choose, whether that's any of the options from above or something different that you've decided on with your physio, make sure we're making a record of it, whether that's distance, whether that's reps and sets, whether it's time or time of the activity performed. Make sure we're recording it so that if we do wake up and we're a little bit more sore, we know we can reduce it a little bit. And when we're thinking about load, it's important to know that we really shouldn't be increasing our load by more than 10% each week. So whatever that is, again, whether that's distance, load, time, think about that 10% rule. Think about, am I doing more than 10% than I was doing last week? If you were, then there's a potential that it could flare up a little bit. So slow, gradual progressions are key when we're thinking about how much we should do and how much we should progress. Where should I start? Again, really, really important question to ask. First thing you need to do is look at the current level of symptoms and ask yourself a few questions. So the first question you should ask yourself is, what could I do today or tomorrow easily? This is a really important question, because you might feel that what you want to do is go to the gym, And you're not going to be able to do that immediately. You're going to have to join, you're going to have to do an induction. So could you do it today or tomorrow relatively easily? You might be able to do that down at the gym, but if that's not feasible, think about what you can start doing at home. And the physio should be able to guide you really well with what you can do at home. Again, I've mentioned it before, it might be going up and down the stairs, it might be body weight squats, it might be other specific knee strengthening exercises. It could be doing the housework a little bit quicker so it gets your cardiovascular fitness up a little bit, so it gets you out of breath. So there's a number of different options that we could do where we could look at incorporating physical activity a little bit better into your life immediately. So again, this is an important question. What access to equipment do you have? Do you already go to a gym? Do you live near a pool? Do you have a bike? You know, those things are important when we're thinking about what physical activity we are going to prescribe to you as physiotherapists. So understanding what you have access to is really, really important. Again, I've said I'm going to reiterate it. You're probably sick of me saying it, but what do you enjoy doing? Fundamental question to ask. It might not be anything to do with physical activity. Just to give you a little example, I had a patient once who really enjoyed oil painting, and they used to paint landscapes, and they didn't enjoy any form of exercise whatsoever and didn't think it was feasible for them to do it. So what the eventual plan we got down to was that they would do their oil painting, but to get to it, they would park a little bit further away. So they had to walk a little bit further to get to the place where they were going to paint. So it's about understanding how you can incorporate physical activity a little bit more into every day for you. What is going to make you stick to it? And I imagine if we get the first 3 points right, then sticking to it is going to be a little bit easier. If you've got access to it, if you enjoy it, and you can start doing it tomorrow, then we're on to a winner. Also important to have a goal. You know, what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to get to? That's fundamental for a successful rehabilitation program. If we're going to start something, you should know what you're going to aim for. It doesn't have to be a big goal. It can be that you just want to reduce pain a little bit. It can be that you just want to be able to walk upstairs a little bit easier. It doesn't have to be a big goal. Equally, it can be, I want to start running again. I want to start playing squash again. The goals can range on that spectrum anywhere, but it's really important to try and have a goal in mind when you start a rehab program, and that can be jointly decided on between you and your physiotherapist really easily and really well thought out, so you've got a nice goal to aim for. And then once you've got the goal, is thinking, what do I need to achieve that? And again, that's important for you and your physio to both discuss. You might need strength, you might need balance, pain reduction, power. That's really going to guide the physio in terms of what and how you perform the exercises or physical activity that you've decided upon. If you're trying to increase power, you might have to do things a little bit quicker. You might have more rest, but you might be able to have to do things quick and explosively. If it's strength, you can take the time a little bit more, but you might have to do things a little bit heavier. Whatever you want to get back to is really going to guide that physio's exercise prescription for you. So the key messages from me for physical activity: you have lots and lots of different options available. There's no magic bullet for knee osteoarthritis, and doing something that you're going to enjoy is really important. Again, doing something that makes your leg ache and doing something that gets you out of breath. Really simple, easy message to live by. If your legs are aching doing it, it's probably doing some good. And we're not talking about the pain you experience with osteoarthritis, but just that general muscle ache. That is a good thing. That means you're working hard. That means you're doing something. That means you're building strength and endurance. So doing something that makes your leg ache and doing something that gets you out of breath, as we've discussed, whether that's running, squash, badminton, cycling, swimming, stairs, housework, whatever that is, getting out of breath is really important for improving your cardiovascular fitness, for reducing other illnesses that you might have, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, as well as your knee osteoarthritis. And again, I'm only going to say it once more, it should be fun, and it should be something that you can do regularly. If you want any more information on the osteoarthritis, then please do visit myiprshealth.com. It's got lots of information on there about it and much more that you can read up on a little bit more. Thanks for listening, and I hope this has helped. I hope to speak to you again in the future. Thanks. Bye.